if a friend had if you wanted to help a friend out, you would ask, Mama, how can I help you? So I think, it really is about praying and asking God to let you know where He will have you. You just don't want to be planted somewhere. You want to be planted where you'll be effective.
And welcome to the Passion Show, where we talk about living out that full life in faith, work, and life in general. On today's episode, I'm so excited to have with me Frema. Frema, you're so welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so can you tell us, well, first of all, I wanted to tell us her full name, and then just tell us a bit about Frema. Who's Frema?
Okay. So my full name is Nana Frema Amanfa. Funny enough, whenever I go somewhere, people always say the whitest person there has the most Ghanaian. But that's good. I'm Ghanaian, African, and proud. So a little bit about myself. So obviously I'm Ghanaian. I was born in Ghana, went to school in Ghana. I went to school with my mom actually, so I know her very well. I'll share some secrets. And then I went to the States to do my undergrad, and then I went to London after to do my master's. And I stayed in London for a little bit after to work. And I moved back to Ghana in 2014. I got married in 2018, and I have two, I must say, beautiful kids.
Beautiful.
So that's the summary. I run a medical diagnostics facility. So I worked with an oil company when I moved back for a little while, and then my passion, I think, has always been medicine, although not necessarily as a medical person myself, but I do like administration for the diagnostic center. So that's what I do now.
You said you had a passion for like medicine. So what you're doing is what you always wanted to do?
I would say in recent years, yes. I don't think when I was younger I necessarily knew I wanted to run a lab, for example. I just know that looking back, I was always very interested in health, in diseases. Like I remember if we would go somewhere, and that was before internet, but if we would go somewhere and you would get little pamphlets on whatever disease it was, whether it was HIV, tuberculosis, I would definitely pick some. And when I get home, would come and read. So I think I've always had that interest in health. I just probably didn't like biology, chemistry, and physics that much to want to be a doctor. Maybe if I had persevered more, I would have. But yeah, where I am now, diagnostics is so important in healthcare because even when a doctor diagnoses you based on what your lab tests see, and you manage your health with your lab. As part of health management, you're going to be going for scans and blood work and all of that. So it's such a key component of healthcare. So, if God forbid your results are wrong or even interpreted wrong, you'll be diagnosed wrongly. So for me, it's such an essential service, and I'm happy where I am.
I love it. So, how was it starting? Did you have the lab already? Did you have all the equipment? So tell us a bit about your journey in setting up Cedar Medical Plaza, right?
Yes, Cedar Medical Plaza. So, I think when I was actually in England, my dad is a Rotarian, so he went on a Rotary trip, forgotten which country, and basically someone fell very ill and was rushed to a medical facility, and that's what the concept kind of came up, because it was sort of like a medical village. So which we got the name then Medical Plaza. So at Cedar, for example, you go to a lot of hospitals, and let's say it's the same. Let me just use as an example. Let's say if it's AB hospital, when you go to AB hospital, the same AB management are the ones running the pharmacy, running the, I don't know if there's a pediatric clinic, they're the same ones running the diagnostic center. So they are all under the same management, let's say. But with our concept, which is what my dad got from his experience, and we sort of like copy here, is We are essentially we run the diagnostics, which is the blood work and the imaging. But aside from that, we are landlord. So there's a pharmacy there, for example, but it's run by a different individual or a different entity. There's a clinic there, had hospital. They run their own thing. They dictate their own prices. So it's supposed to be like a medical mall. You know, you go to a mall, there are different buyers, sellers, that sort of thing. So it's a medical mall actually, in simple terms. So that's how the idea came about. So when I moved to Ghana, obviously that wasn't my initial. I wanted to work with the company I was working with in England. So I worked with them, and they gave me such valuable, experience. Although it was in the oil industry, it's amazing how much you can learn and apply. You get what I'm saying? So in terms of even just processes, how to, or paperwork, that sort of thing, the training they give you. So yeah, so I left the company, I think I left in 2016. And honestly, whenever you leave somewhere or you have a plan, because we already there, and you see that it's owned by the family business, so we had the building, we didn't have the expertise, so we had to get a consultant to help us with purchasing stuff, the design, the interior design of the building and everything. But all of that was sort of like going on. But I think sometimes when you step out of a season and you see a new season in front of you, you immediately think, oh, everything is going to be very quick, everything is going to be very fast, everything is going to grow beautifully, and that did not happen at all. So I left in 2016 with a very good salary. And as of 2017, 2018, the lab had still not been set up. And it was also because of family business, we didn't have any support from any investor or anything. So it also obviously was a toll on my parents as well. But you have good days. Some days you tell yourself, oh, God's time is the best. Other days you're like, what am I doing with my life? Why didn't I stay where I was? You get what I'm saying? So honestly, I had those seasons. Like I went through those thoughts and everything. And eventually, we just started last year, 2020. So it took like 4 years. And my pockets obviously were strained by then. And you think of those things, sometimes God can give you a vision, but maybe when it's not going according to your time, you think, oh, let me go and do another job because I need the money. But fortunately, I was able to, with my husband, with my parents, survive through it. But it just was very difficult. And then even now we've set up, but obviously there are the pains of the startup pains, where as a new business things are not always very clear cut, or things are not always easy. So you are now also in a completely different season. But we thank God. For me, I think even now I say it, and then when we hadn't started, I always used to say that when God says, I will restore to you the years the locust, that all this time where I should have started but nothing was happening, I always say, I know that God will help me. He will restore those years that I've lost, financially, whatever it is. But He'll restore it to me. So that's how Cedar started. So I think just at the start, I definitely remember when obviously I just moved. I think even before right when I was leaving my job, I started to do some research. Obviously, I needed someone, because I'm not in the industry, so I needed someone to, whether I was a consultant, or do some market research for me. And I remember very clearly one day I went to church. And then when I went to church, there was this young guy who, after the service, youth service, he came up, he was raising funds for, I think it was the children's ward at Cedar or something. I'm usually not one of those people who approaches people, like I'm kind of like, I'm shy sometimes. So, but for whatever reason, I was really drawn to what he was doing. So after the service, I went to meet him. I took his contact. I told him, oh, I'm going to try and raise money for him. So I raised, I think I was even in 2014 as well, since 2015. So I got some money for him. So in the process, we became friends. I kept in touch with him. So actually, let me shout out to him. So it's
Shout
Samani.
out.
Samani is actually he's a TV. He's on TV. I think he's with TV3. He does the midday news. So thank you, Samani. So I became friends with Samani. So he was at that time he was a medical laboratory student. So later when like we decided, okay, let's get Cedar up, I was thinking, who do I know in this field who can at least help me or connect me with somebody or something? Because all my friends, everyone was doing different things. Definitely nothing near, what's it called, laboratory science or whatever. So I was thinking, and then I remembered Samani. Like, wow, God, it was like that. I'm not saying God only brings people into your life when you can use them, but I'm like, it's amazing how God made me meet this guy, because I literally did not know how I was going. I couldn't even think of who I was going to ask. But and it was through him. He connected me with someone who did market research for me, and then later he connected me with someone who actually the guy who did the market research and connected me with the man who became our consultant and who now heads the lab. So it's just amazing how God, just orders your steps, I mean, whether it's over days, over months, over years, but he already had it prepared that, from that encounter with Samani, he will go on later to help me do this. So I say that definitely is like, one of those things where years down the line, I would always remind myself, it's not just by luck that you met this guy and he helped you. It's because God knew that you would need that help, and it's because, even like I said, the consultant is now the lab manager. Everything is planned. So I think that, and I just knew, that, Cedar, maybe now we are small, no one knows that much. But I know that Cedar will have an impact. I chose, when I was thinking of the name, I didn't just choose a random name. But when you look in the Bible, the cedar tree it's mentioned maybe more times than most trees in the Bible. It was used to build the temples, with a very strong, durable tree. So I chose that name because of what it represents. Like it builds, it's a foundation. Not even just for Cedar as a company, but even for people who work with us, it should help you. You should leave. I always tell them at work, you should leave Cedar being better than you came in.
I love it. Thank you, Frema. And Frema, I also know that Frema is a multi-dimensional woman. So apart from being a wife, a mother, and the founder of Cedar Medical Plaza, she's also a pioneer in a ministry called Team Jesus. So could you tell us about your journey? Why Team Jesus, and where did it begin?
So Team Jesus was in 2011. So 2011, I actually lost my cousin, and it was like a turning point in my life. It was someone I just spoken to like a week ago. Next thing I know, I'm not feeling well. You just think, obviously, whenever someone tells you you're not feeling well, you would hope they would recover. And then the long and short of it is he just passed away in that week. And I think at that time he was like one of the closest people, if not the closest person I'd ever lost. So, after that, I spent the next few weeks. I would say I wouldn't say I questioned God, but I was definitely very confused. I was looking at my life. What if I also die next? That sort of thing. And so literally, I remember I was living in London then, and I remember my aunt was staying with me. We were staying at another aunt's house. And this aunt, she said something about how maybe God will use you to do something. When we are growing up, whenever they talk about serving in church, you always think of the usher or the choir, or I don't know. you never think of the helpers, in quotes. So so that same aunt, she was saying how God can use you to do this, and I said to her, well, maybe I don't think God can use me to do anything. Because at that time, especially, I was thinking, I don't sing, I don't like ushering.
Yeah.
So, what can God use me to do? And I wasn't at that time. I wasn't also sure. I mean, I was definitely a Christian, as in, I wanted to live for God, but I wasn't making so much of an effort. I wasn't all in. That's what I'm saying. And so sorry, going back to my aunt. So she actually got me to read this book. She got it for my uncle and she insisted I buy it. I was like, this lady is stressing me out. So it was The Happiest People on Earth. It's by Demos. I can't pronounce his last name. He's the founder of the Full Gospel Ministry. And I mean, it's such an amazing book. It's my favorite book. So he was a helper. So he talked about how obviously he grew up in a different setting from Ghana, but God called him to raise these meetings for men to come together and fellowship, share their testimonies just like they do today. And so he wasn't necessarily an orator himself, but he set up that platform, he organized these meetings. So I was very interested. I realized that is my calling, probably because, like my friends will tell you, I love organizing. Maybe now I don't have time, but I love putting together things. So just around that time, finishing the book, I literally remember I was in the bathroom one day, and I just felt that God, just the Holy Spirit just came upon me and said to me, Frema, I want you to start this ministry. She gave me the name Team Jesus. It's funny, even people are like, why isn't it Jesus Team? I'm like, I don't know, it's Team Jesus. And just said, you guys will organize all these meetings for the youth, And at that time, when we started Team Jesus in 2011, this is spoken from a point of humility, but I think Maima can even attest. At that time, there weren't a lot of youth conferences. Every youth conference was maybe from a church, like a church was organizing their own youth conference. But you didn't have a lot of standalone ministries just organizing things for everybody, not just people in their church. So honestly, like when we started, it was so impactful. It was amazing to see. We would sometimes have a conference, there would be like 600, 700 people come, and it was whether some people came just because it was, at that time, it's not like now Ghana is so social in December. At that time, there wasn't so much to do. So, whether people came just because it's like, oh, I'm going, my friend is going, let me go. But I'm sure many lives were touched by it, And it wasn't just people we went to school, it was people from all over, all over coming. So I definitely knew, I mean, I have a servant heart. I like to serve, I like to help. And I knew that, yes, I'm not an orator, I'm not going to be a preacher or a teacher per se, but, God knew that in that skill of organizing, I would use it for His glory. So that's it.
Love it. So could you speak to anyone who is wondering? And I think I love this. I love this whole dimension of God. Talks about many gifts, and even as I speak, I'm thinking about 1 Corinthians chapter 12. They talk about the gifts of the Bible, and most of the time, unfortunately or fortunately, there are some gifts that are prioritized, as you said. So the more charismatic you are, in your speech, so even softer gifts in the oratory segment, like teaching or even maybe shepherding or something, are rather not as celebrated as maybe the louder, more profound, so to speak, gifts. But then the thing about God is that every gift is profound, and I really love what you shared about the helps ministry. So I want you to talk to someone who's sitting there and it's like, hey, I don't even know which, I feel like I'm supposed to serve. I feel like I'm supposed to do something, with God, but I don't know. What would you share with them? Like, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think, when you have a relationship with God, just like you would communicate with a friend, like if a friend had if you wanted to help a friend out, you would ask, Mama, how can I help you? So I think, it really is about praying and asking God to let you know where He will have you. You just don't want to be planted somewhere, you want to be planted where you'll be effective. So, and also to realize that I talk about seasons a lot, but it's true. In every season, you might have a different calling. Maybe you have someone. They're also a good orator, and they also are a good helper. But maybe in this particular season, the Lord has called them to maybe do more helping, because helping tends to be in the background. So maybe to do more of that. But maybe 5 years down the line, God will say, okay, now I want you to go, more into teaching ministry. You get it. So, but I think it's just having that channel where God can tell you, Frema, this is where I want you to be. Because I will say, for example, when I started serving, even in church, I was in Hillsong in the UK. I used to stuff envelopes. Believe me, it brought me so much joy. Like stuff the envelope with the offertory and the tithe envelope, the pack. Sorry, I was a packer, and I loved it so much. And then when I moved to